All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today entitled Tax Season Starts Now. These are the IT moves that smart businesses should make before December 31st. Thanks for joining us. I actually cannot believe that we are already talking about the end of 2025. It just doesn't even seem like it could be real. I'm Aubrey Stone. I am a CEO at Cybertools, and I'm glad you're here today. As we move into the final stretch of the year, it's the time when smart planning can really pay off for us. And whether you're leading the IT, the operations, or the compliance at your place of business, our year-end technology decisions can really directly impact our tax strategy, our downtime risk, and your really overall readiness for 2026. So today we're going to go through some of the most impactful moves you can make. And I'll share a few lessons of things that we're seeing across the industry, and then we're just going to spend about 20 minutes together. I'll open it up for Q&A at the end, and if you have some questions, go ahead and drop them into the question section, and we'll be sure to get to as many of them as we can. Jaden, my co-host, will be helping me with that at the end. So let's start with why Q4 is such an important time to be strategic about your IT. For most organizations, this is the quarter where everything converges. Budgets are finalized, compliance reviews kick in, vendor renewals come due, and leadership teams are actually mapping out next year's priorities. I know me and my team have been deep in discussions about next year. What are our priorities? What's our long-term planning goals? And how can we make sure we're ready to act on that strategy? The challenge is that IT decisions are often made reactively. It's either because something has broken or it's too late to claim certain financial advantages. And what we want to do is instead align IT with finance and treat IT decisions as financial strategy. So for example, if you're going to be upgrading servers or you have workstations that are coming to a 5-year age span this year, before the year ends, you're going to want to start looking at purchasing those things because of tax deductions. You also, by purchasing those things, can really affect the operational efficiency for next year. If your aging equipment is starting to cause efficiency problems, a lot of us, it creeps up on us. We don't even realize it's happening. Our computers are getting slower. They're running into problems. You're having to reboot. All those minutes really add up to operational efficiency in your business. And so because of some of the tax deductions, this is a really smart time to start asking, are our IT investments still working for us, or are they working against us? One of the biggest year-end opportunities that flies under the radar is how IT investments can improve your tax position. I know, believe it or not, I didn't know about this either until several years ago when my own accountant pointed out to me. So many of the IT purchases you're already planning for, whether that's new hardware, certain cybersecurity tools, or even some managed services, they may qualify for Section 179 deductions or accelerated depreciation. And the key here is timing. To take advantage of those benefits for this tax year, purchases generally need to be made and deployed before December 31st. So think of it this way. If you're already budgeting for infrastructure upgrades or renewals in Q1, sometimes moving those investments into Q4 by a few weeks here could mean thousands of dollars of savings on your tax liability. The other piece is classification. So knowing what counts as CapEx expense versus an OpEx expense. Capital expenditures can often be deducted faster if completed before the end of the year closes. So partner with your finance team early and bring IT into these conversations, because this is where that alignment literally really could pay off. Now let's shift to another idea that's equally important: compliance and risk management. We are seeing rapid changes in the regulatory landscape heading into 2026. And not just for like large enterprise organizations, but even for the small and medium-sized business and mid-market company. We're seeing frameworks tightening in terms of compliance, and we believe that we're going to start seeing more and more of this happen, especially after the first AI cyber attack was announced last week, where we didn't have humans launching these attacks. We had AI launching these attacks, which is really going to start focusing. AI is going to be better at seeking out not just enterprise level targets, but even our smaller and mid-sized businesses. So we're going to see those compliance frameworks start to tighten up as well. We're going to see people who are SOC 2 compliant start to tighten up and make sure that those things are really happening. We're going to see HIPAA start to tighten down and make sure that the requirements that they have are really being put into businesses. I think we're also going to see state data laws start to tighten up in the coming years. If not in 2026, definitely in the next 3 years, we're going to see that happen. Insurance is another big one. A lot of us have a cyber liability component to our insurance, and I think insurance companies are really going to start wanting to see proof of the things that you said yes to on that questionnaire when you asked to get that insurance. So really the bottom line is that documentation of these things matters. You can't just be compliant, you actually have to prove it. And so this is where a proactive IT approach really pays off. So before the end of the year, take time. Let's review your access controls, let's test backups, confirm our encryption standards are working, and make sure that you've got MFA and password policies across your company and that you're asking people to comply with it. If your IT documentation hasn't been updated since mid-year, now's the time for you to kind of start refreshing it. These records not only help you pass audits, but they also show insurance providers and other vendors that may want to work with you that your environment is secure and it's well managed. The other big concern that we see this time of year is downtime. So between end of year reporting, customer deadlines, and heavy online traffic, systems are usually under more strain than usual. And cyber attacks, because of that, the cyber criminals know that this kind of pressure is happening in our businesses. And this is when they dramatically spike attacks. They also spike attacks in November and December because they know that all of us are out on vacation, or that this is a typical time where people take time off to be with their families and we're not as diligent and acute to what's going on. What makes this worse is that many IT teams are short-staffed during the holidays. So small gaps like a missed patch, an expired certificate, or an untested backup can sometimes have serious consequences. I always tell clients, don't assume your backup works, test it, run a restore, verify the process end to end, and make sure it can be restored. A backup is not a set it up and forget it kind of entity. It's something that you need to test and make sure it's working, because sometimes it can have quirks just like any other piece of software or any other IT process. Let's make sure you've got visibility across your infrastructure, especially after hours. One overlooked server can take down your whole network if it fails under a load. This is exactly the kind of work that we help people with. Our goal is to help organizations become what we call audit ready and resilient. That means that you're secure, compliant, and prepared with documentation, monitoring, and proactive support in place. For example, one of our professional services clients last year avoided a huge outage because we caught a misconfigured backup during our year-end audit. And because of that, we were able to get that backup configured properly and restoring properly. And wouldn't you know it, about a quarter later, their server failed because they were running an old application. They didn't want to upgrade the server because that application wouldn't be compliant with the new hardware. And so they were dragging it out another year to wait for that software. Because we did that end of the year audit, we were able to find that that backup wasn't mounting properly in that older system. We were able to get a workaround fix so that it could be mounted. And then when they went out that quarter later, we were able to react instead of, we were able to be proactive so that we could react quickly instead of trying to be reactive to a problem that was unknown and could have caused a lot of downtime, which would have caused their operation a lot of dollars in revenue. So if you're feeling stretched or behind on your IT checklist, this is the perfect time to seek out help from someone. If it's not us, someone else. Get someone in there to just get a quick look. Understand if your year in, if you're ready. Is your IT strengthened? Are you compliant to certain things that you've said that you were going to be compliant for? And do we need to plan for or build for resiliency in 2026? So to wrap up, here's a quick 5-step action plan. First thing you want to do is audit your IT infrastructure. Identify outdated systems. If you're still running Windows 10 in your environment, you should have a plan for getting that either buying an extended support license so that Windows 10 is still supported, or upgrading that hardware to Windows 11. If you're running a server that has outdated operating system, you definitely need to be planning. And now, right before the end of tax season, is a great time to buy that hardware because it's tax deductible. You don't have to have the project completely done, but you have that server deployed on your site and sitting there and ready for getting it put into place. You also want to look at licensing or storage issues that you might be having with certain components. Are your computers running well? Do you have computers that are 6, 7 years old and starting to show their age? Get that infrastructure audited. Understand where everything is. What is the lifespan of this equipment that you have in your environment right now? Should we start budgeting to replace it? Does it make sense to replace it before the end of the year? Or should we put in a roadmap for the year 2026, quarter over quarter, different replacement schedules? Second, it's really good for you to evaluate your year-end purchases. What can be completed or renewed before 31st to capture those deductions, or what should be planned for in those software purchases or other purchases to also put in to that quarterly plan, just like we would your infrastructure or your hardware. Third, it's time to start looking at your compliance documentation. Are your policies up to date for your staff? Do you have a password policy that they're following? Do you have a policy for acceptable use if they bring in their own equipment into your network? Do they know what is expected of them? Do they know that they need to be taking that cybersecurity training at the beginning of the year to satisfy your cyber liability policy? We want to make sure that all your policies and controls are documented, up to date, and ready for 2026. Fourth, let's make sure to test those backups and recovery plans. A dry run now can save you from costly downtime later. Finally, align with your IT department, your internal department, whoever the person is that's handling your IT. Maybe it's an outsourced company, and make sure that you have a plan that you're working together to optimize 2026. IT should be a strategy that powers growth for your company. It should be a strategy that can be scaled to meet your year plan for 2026. If you're planning to add new employees, what does that look like? How can we make that procedure as quick and as efficiently as possible? Also, you want to talk about these things with your internal leadership team. Talk about what's going to roll over into quarter one or what you're going to deal with here in the last few weeks of the year. Tackling one or two of these before the new year can sometimes really make a measurable difference. So I find it really important. Another good first step of auditing is to run some sort of a vulnerability scan within your network. Find out where those vulnerabilities are. What are your systems being patched? Are the patches being managed by someone, or are you relying on your employees to go in and press a button to get the latest Microsoft security updates? Those updates, although they're a pain in our butt because we don't know if we're signing up for that machine to sit and spin while it updates for 15 minutes or 45, they're really important. And an IT provider or a partner should be able to handle that in the background so you don't have to worry about it. Patching is how Microsoft, all of your other applications that you use, is going to say what you have to protect against the latest threats. So for example, if Microsoft looks at and analyzes this last AI attack and realizes that during that attack, they took advantage of parts of their software, they're going to go and create a patch and a security update for that vulnerability, and they're going to release it. And that's what those updates are. So if we don't get those put on and aligned with that, we're leaving ourselves open for vulnerabilities. So that is another reason why we really need to make sure that we align with someone within our companies who's handling our IT and talk about these sort of problems and get ourselves ready for 2026. So I know that was sort of short and sweet, but I didn't want to take up a lot of your time because I do know that the end of the year is a very busy time. But I just wanted to cover a few things that companies should be looking at and action plans they should be putting into place before 2026. So now I'll go to question and answers. I see that there's already a question in here. Somebody has asked, let's see, what do you mean by compliance mistakes? Okay, well, compliance for most businesses is going to be either one, you're complying to the plan that your company has put in place for your security there. So is the company complying with that plan that you have internally? There also might be a cyber liability policy that your company has put in place to protect yourself in the event of a cyber attack. And that policy is going to have guidelines, just like your automobile policy does, or just like your homeowner's policy does, right? It's going to have guidelines that tell us what needs to be in place in order for them to cover or make sure that your attack is covered. So you might be under that sort of a regulatory body. There are some companies that are under HIPAA. If you're in the medical field, HIPAA has compliance regulations of how you're supposed to be securing and protecting the health data of your patients. Is your organization in alignment with those practices? If there was some sort of incident, would you be able to prove to HIPAA that you had those things in place and you were taking care of them? FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, also has a whole new set of regulations that they've imposed on anybody that deals with financial data and financial situations like banks, even can go down to automobile dealerships and things like that because they have people's financial data. Are you following those set of compliance regulations, and can you prove that you were if there was some sort of a breach? So the year end is like when businesses start to scramble, and we want to make sure that you're kind of thinking through those things. And some of the biggest issues we see is letting software or security licenses lapse, or not documenting changes in the environment that's happened, ignoring backups and not making sure they can be recoverable, reviewing user access rights. Do your users have access only to what they need, or do they have more access than they need? Those are sort of the things that we're looking at when we're talking about compliance. Jaden, do we have any other questions that have popped in?
I do not see anything else.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll just go to our last slide here, which is our key takeaways. Act now so that you can maximize any IT tax advantages that are available. Strengthen that compliance before 2026. do what you can to prevent downtime in Q4 so you can get your work done. And if you feel led, get a partner for proactive IT success. We do year-end IT reviews with people. If you'd like to schedule to just talk to us about what that could look like, we've got a QR code here, and we'd be happy to provide some advice of how you can do it on your own, or even talk to you about how you can get help with that. So thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I really hope this gave you some clarity and confidence as you're heading into the final weeks of the year, because a smart IT plan now can really pay off through 2026. So thanks everyone for joining me, and take care. Happy end of the year.